Hi, my name is Derek Murphy. This is a free video course, and we're going to talk about editing your book, working with an editor, self-editing, and basically improving your manuscript to get it ready for publishing. So briefly, I'll tell you my story. I started an editing company when I was doing my master's in literature. I've edited several dozen books. I started doing my PhD, and then I turned that editing company into a bigger editing company, and now I kind of manage it with my partner. Since then, I've also published several nonfiction books, and I'm working on my first novel now. So when I was an editor, I came at writing from a different point of view than people who are first-time authors. And now that I'm writing fiction, I'm learning a lot more about that creative process. And so I feel like my understanding of the editor-author relationship has really deepened. So I'm putting out this free video course. I'm also going to talk with some best-selling authors and editors to kind of get their feedback on what it's like to work with an editor or what it's like to work with authors, because that's really, there's a very weird relationship that goes on between those two different roles. The first thing, most authors are generally, they come up with this story and they put it all down and they get really excited about it and they're passionate about it and it's done. Editors are the people who have to take a story and turn it into a product. And that sounds really kind of negative, but for me, a good story is always a better product. So if you take the time to improve your craft, or you work with a really good editor and you make your story better so that it satisfies readers, that's always going to be a better product that will sell more copies. And I think writers don't think about selling copies when they're doing the writing process, but I actually think that's a big mistake, because if you think about how the readers are going to respond to your book, and you take the time to really care about whether those readers are going to be satisfied by this story, you kind of get out of your own head, and you also focus on, how can I make this story the best it can possibly be? What are the reader expectations when they're approaching this book? And how can I over-deliver so that when they finish reading it, they're not just like, this was an okay book, but they really think this was an amazing, life-changing, perfect book that I'm going to recommend to everybody. Because that's really the difference between a book that disappears quickly and a book that stays as a bestseller, that stays up on top of the ranks. And you always want, if you're taking the time to write a book, you always want to take that a little bit of extra effort to make sure you're writing a bestseller. And that takes knowledge about the field and your genre, but also the intention to write a bestseller. And most authors, they don't have an intention to write a bestseller. They have an intention to write the book that they want to write, and they are resistant to considering readership at all. And so most editors have to try to bring authors towards this other perspective where they'll say, you wrote this thing, now we want to make it appeal to people, we want to make it satisfy people. A lot of authors will be very resistant to that because it's not what they want it to make. That's fine if you're just creating something, but if you want to make a book that sells a lot of copies so that you can earn some income, so you can build your platform and write other books, and those will be more successful. If you're building an author career rather than this is just a one-off thing that was kind of a hobby and you don't really care if it sells or not. So we're going to talk about book editing. I'm going to talk about the things that you can do to improve your book by yourself and why it's absolutely crucial that you take the time to do those things by yourself before you even start looking for an editor. We'll talk about a little bit the difference between fiction and nonfiction and how you can improve both of those. And I'm excited about the special guest appearances because I'm going to be interviewing some very cool people and adding their thoughts down below. There's also a list of recommended readings, so I would check out those books for sure. They've helped me a lot in my writing process. So thanks. Let me know if you have any questions about editing or writing or whatever. Bye-bye.